Thank you for choosing to listen to this story on Panda Tale. Before we begin, please like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any stories. Happy listening. I am the female lead's wicked older sister, the type of evil sister who, when the heroine saves Marcus Montgomery from near death, I rush out to claim all the credit. Honestly, this isn't my fault, blame Marcus's not so bright mind. At that time, I was browsing a jewelry shop when Marcus saw me holding a jade pendant. His eyes immediately lit up. He hurriedly ran over and asked me, "Is that your sister's jade pendant?" I thought for a moment. This jade pendant was something I had just snatched from Lily Chen, but now that it was in my hands, it was mine. So I hung the pendant on my waist, gave him a cold glance, and said, "What if it's mine? What if it's not? Are you going to snatch it from me?" Marcus's face turned red from my words, flustered and waving his hands repeatedly saying, I didn't mean that." I snorted coldly, not bothering with this fool anymore, and turned to leave. Marcus wasn't angry. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at me intently, following my every step, calling, "Sister, sister," very intimately. "Sister, sister, I don't know how to address you. Where do you live? This guy talks too much, he's annoying me to death." I tilted my head and glared at him, my gaze falling on the jade pendant. Suddenly getting an idea, I told him I was the second daughter of Minister Chen's household, ranked 6th. Marcus's eyes brightened even more as he clung to me, saying all sorts of things, mostly compliments about how beautiful and kind I was. I thought to myself that although this kid was a bit noisy, his words were quite sweet. The next day, I heard that the young Marquise of Duke Zhengguo's mansion came to propose marriage. The one being proposed to was the 6th young lady of Minister Chen's household. I went to watch and saw the grand display, Grand Princess Eleanor personally acting as matchmaker, with Marcus standing beside the Grand Princess. When he noticed someone looking from the window and raised his head to see me, his eyes lit up brilliantly. "Oh, so he's the young Marquis of Duke Zhengguo's mansion. He really does look like a fool." I covered half my face with my fan and left. Unfortunately, I hadn't taken 2 steps before encountering my 6th sister. My sister had also come to spy on the news. She stared intently at the jade pendant on my body, looking dejected. Since I was already bored with this trivial trinket, I generously gave it to her to play with. She was so happy she cried, took the jade pendant and left. Then she bumped into Marcus. The two looked at each other, and Lily froze, then blushed and curtsied to Marcus, speaking as softly as mosquitoes buzz, "Greetings." But that fool Marcus completely ignored her. He hurriedly brushed past Lily and ran to my side. "Sister, what a coincidence to meet you again." His eyes sparkled brightly as he deliberately tilted his head to look at me, unable to hide his smile. As Marcus spoke, he took out a white rabbit-shaped jade hairpin from his chest and presented it to me, somewhat nervously saying, "Sister, this is a hairpin I made myself. Do you like it?" Still the same fool who likes to show off. I raised my fan to my nose, glanced at the hairpin in his hand, and nodded slightly in agreement. Marcus immediately showed joy on his face, his hand holding the hairpin trembling slightly. After a long while, he finally said with a red face, "Sister, let me put it on for you?" Before I could speak, Lily, standing behind Marcus, had already frozen stiff. She seemed unable to believe it, her face pale as she stared at Marcus's back. But Marcus only had eyes for me, completely ignoring her. Looking at these two, I raised my fan to lightly touch my nose, smiling meaningfully. Sophie, my maid behind me, immediately understood and stepped forward to take the hairpin. Though Marcus was a bit reluctant, he knew his place and stayed put without forcing anything. It was sunny outside. I was too lazy to chat in this scorching heat, so I turned to leave. Before leaving, I suddenly remembered something and turned to look at Lily beside him, then looked at Marcus with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, saying, "I wish the young Marquis success in getting what he desires." Marcus's eyes brightened as he nodded repeatedly, looking at me with even more passion. I didn't turn back again, so naturally I didn't see Lily mustering all her courage to approach Marcus wanting to talk. Marcus had already put away the cheerful expression he had when facing me. He looked down at her coldly with proud arrogance. Under his cold gaze, Lily's face grew paler and paler until finally she could only cover her face and run away. I heard about this from Sophie when she went to get me some crispy peanuts, overhearing it from the maids in Lily's courtyard, who said Lily returned crying until her pillow was soaked. I found it absolutely delightful. unable to help feeling secretly pleased. I had a feeling that Marcus and my sixth sister's wedding day would definitely have some good drama to watch. To thank my sixth sister for providing this entertainment, I specially sent over dozens of boxes of jewelry to show my gratitude. But when Lily saw the courtyard full of silk and treasures, her face turned deathly pale, yet she didn't accept a single item. "Miss, those dozens of boxes have all been returned," Sophie, my close maid, reported angrily. I covered my mouth with a handkerchief and laughed softly. "Fine. If she doesn't want them, I don't need to pretend to be a loving sister." I laughed coldly. I had already examined the deep red wedding dress that Lily had embroidered by hand. The craftsmanship was exquisite, truly excellent. Worthy of being the female lead. It's just that Lily kept staring at me worriedly, afraid I would use the scissors in my hand to cut up the wedding dress she had worked so hard to make. "Do you think I'm that kind of person?" I asked Sophie while eating melon seeds, needing to cover my guilty conscience. Sophie poured tea for me without changing expression, then quietly answered with one word, "Yes." I coughed to cover my embarrassment, stuffing the melon seed shells in my hand into Sophie's palm. She couldn't catch them all at once, and the shells in her hands scattered to the ground. The melon seed shells flew everywhere, becoming brilliant fireworks filling the sky. The grandson of Grand Princess Eleanor, the famous young Marquis, was getting married in grand style. The scene was absolutely extravagant. An 8-carrier large sedan chair with 108 loads of dowry gifts parading around the capital in a circle. The streets were covered with copper coins and red paper, making the watching crowds cheer endlessly. Everyone was joyful and excited. I sat in the elegant room of the Purple Tower, looking down at this grand wedding scene, clicking my tongue twice. With such a display, I'm afraid no one will be able to surpass it for the next 5 years. The auspicious time had arrived, and the bride was getting into the sedan chair. Joyful music rang out from Duke Jungwo's mansion. Seeing this situation, I felt I should go add to the festivities. I leisurely pushed through the crowd to stand beside my father at the front. Initially, Marcus was still smiling brilliantly, the corners of his mouth curving up endlessly. But as soon as he turned and saw me, the smile on his face suddenly froze. "Congratulations, congratulations." I smiled and clasped my hands in greeting. The young Marquis has finally gotten his wish. But his gaze fell on the jade pendant at the female lead's waist, that very familiar piece. Marcus's eyes darted back and forth between me and Lily, and the surrounding people finally realized something was wrong. Then Marcus suddenly lifted the sixth sister's red veil. The joyful music abruptly stopped. "Why is it you?" Marcus gritted his teeth, barely containing his anger as he asked. "Young Marcus, why shouldn't it be me?" Lily also looked confused, tears welling in her eyes, truly making one feel sympathy. My six sisters crying was so moving, truly too elegant. I couldn't help wanting to applaud and praise her. But seeing Marcus's ugly expression, I still suppressed my urge to clap. At times like this, I should remain a bit more modest. But even though I was being modest, the fire still spread to me. Marcus suddenly strode forward, his eyes red as he grabbed my hand and pulled me into the center. "The person I want to marry is clearly her." This was too much. I was just here to watch the drama, not to become an actor for others to watch. I struggled desperately, hitting his hand hard, but Marcus had no intention of letting go. Instead, he held tighter, finally pulling me into his arms. "She is the true owner of the jade pendant. The person you should marry is her. Let me go." I couldn't help but scold. "Don't you understand human speech?" Hearing this, Lily cried even more sorrowfully, hugging the jade pendant and sobbing speechlessly. But Marcus didn't believe her. He looked at Lily's jade pendant for a moment, then suddenly snatched it and threw it hard on the ground. With a loud crash, the jade pendant shattered into pieces. I figured that at the same moment, my sixth sister's young maiden's heart probably shattered too. She stepped back 2 paces, swaying unsteadily. Meanwhile, Marcus held my wrist tightly, angrily leaning close to my ear and saying, "Little liar, you clearly knew I was asking for your name." "So what?" He asked about the jade pendant first, then asked about me. He was clearly asking who the owner of this jade pendant was. I said the female lead Lily's name. What's wrong with that? I looked him straight in the eye without flinching. "This jade pendant isn't mine, it's my sixth sister's." Meaning the person he wanted to marry should be Lily. "I don't care about any jade pendant," Marcus said. After hearing this, his face darkened, his hand tightening even more. but when he saw me frown slightly, he unconsciously loosened his grip. The person I wanted to marry from the beginning was you. With that, he quickly covered my head with the red dragon and phoenix wedding veil, intending to force me to go through the wedding ceremony. I hit him while scolding. You must be crazy. I'm the legitimate daughter of the Chen family. You're marrying my family's sixth sister, the second daughter. He gritted his teeth and said in my ear, That's right, I'm marrying Minister Chen's second daughter. If I say you are, then you are. I was pressed down by him trying to drag me to the ceremony. The auspicious red dragon and phoenix veil had just been placed on my head when the sound of a staff hitting the ground hard rang out. Absurd. Grand Princess Eleanor's voice, though not loud, was cold and stern. How can marriage matters be treated as a game? I nodded repeatedly, really wanting to shout that the Grand Princess was absolutely right. I had only come to watch the excitement, never expecting Marcus to make such a sudden move. Without saying anything, he just dragged me to go through the ceremony. You should know his marriage contract clearly stated Lily's name. Now at the ceremony, he suddenly changed his mind, saying he wouldn't marry Lily but wanted to marry me instead. What exactly was he trying to do? I hoped the Grand Princess would teach Marcus a lesson and make him give up this absurd idea. Grandmother. Marcus held my hand tightly and said loudly, Your grandson will only marry her as his wife in this lifetime. After the ceremony is complete, I will explain everything clearly. Even if grandmother wants to break my legs then, I won't complain. The guests on all sides immediately began buzzing with discussion. I didn't need to look to know everyone's expressions must be quite spectacular at this moment. My hand tightly gripped the veil, wanting to lift it. Marcus pursed his lips, held my hand tightly, and said softly, You are the bride, you cannot lift it. Marcus, I raised my foot, aimed precisely, and stomped hard on his foot. I'm sure I used all my strength, but Marcus not only didn't let go, but instead took advantage of the situation to pull me into his arms. Don't make a scene. Whether you want to marry or not, you have to marry. Marcus hugged my waist and said softly in my ear, Struggling is useless. Your father has no intention of defending you. Under the veil, I laughed coldly. With that damned old father, as long as he could climb the high branch of the Grand Princess, it didn't matter which daughter he married off. If Lily wasn't loved by Marcus, and it was switched to the legitimate daughter like me, I'm afraid in his eyes it wouldn't be a big deal either. Though the Grand Princess was angry, she couldn't do anything about her only grandson. She could only strike the ground hard with her staff in compromise. If that's the case, then go ahead and marry this Chen daughter today. Afterward, bring the woman in your heart into the mansion as a concubine. One sentence determined my status as a concubine. I don't want to. At the same time, 3 voices rang out in the wedding hall. I quickly lifted the veil and looked at Marcus beside me, then at Lily who had just gritted her teeth to hold back tears and speak up. The 3 of us looked at each other, all with expressions of shock. I could roughly guess what Marcus was thinking. I just didn't understand why Lily didn't want this. I knew she had long secretly admired Marcus. After Marcus proposed to Lily, she was so excited she couldn't sleep for several nights. Moreover, the Grand Princess's proposal wasn't disadvantageous to her at all. If Lily agreed to marry now, she would be Marcus's legitimate wife with proper status. I really couldn't think of any reason for her to refuse. I looked suspiciously at my usually timid sixth sister. At this moment, Lily didn't look at me or Marcus. She knelt before the Grand Princess and performed a perfect ceremony, pressing her body very low, almost touching the ground, and said hoarsely, I know that the young Marquise and I have fate but no destiny. I only beg your highness to consider the young Marquis's deep feelings and grant them their wish. I frowned and immediately understood Lily's thinking. She saw Marcus's attitude toward me and knew this marriage couldn't continue. Having already become a laughingstock, it was better to retreat to advance and preserve some reputation. I gritted my teeth and stepped forward, not wanting her to get her way. Just then, an aged voice came from the inner chamber. Good. Since you have such intentions, I shall grant your wish. I annul your marriage with Marcus and grant you your freedom. With one word, I. Everyone in the wedding hall was shocked and kowtowed, shouting, Long live the Emperor. Lily's tears immediately flowed as she kowtowed loudly in thanks to His Majesty. The Emperor slowly emerged from the inner chamber, his gaze resting on Marcus and me, smiling ambiguously. Heaven sent fate. Today I shall play matchmaker and grant marriage to you too." Before I could speak, Marcus's eyes lit up brilliantly. He pulled me down to kneel, his voice even louder than Lily's. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for granting this marriage." The music started again, and everyone in the wedding hall suddenly burst into laughter, raising their cups in congratulation as if the frozen scene just now was merely an illusion. Only the Grand Princess sat on high with a ghastly pale face. Marcus raised his head, his eyes sparkling as he looked at me, once again placing the red veil on my head. I stood there frozen in place, my mind buzzing. Wasn't anyone going to ask my opinion? I don't think I said the two words, "I'm willing." Taking advantage of Marcus's happiness, I tried to quietly retreat, but was immediately held back by the crowd of onlookers and pushed toward the wedding altar, laughing and saying, "Let's perform the ceremony." I was pushed by the crowd into Marcus's arms. The veil blocked my vision, making me stumble. The veil obscured my sight, preventing me from seeing Lily's deathly pale face as she stood in the corner, clenching her fists so tightly that blood dripped from her palms onto the wedding dress she had embroidered for half a month. As if she didn't care at all, just staring at me intently, her eyes filled with hatred. The 10th day of the 4th lunar month wasn't an auspicious day. The calendar said it was good for traveling and marriages. I didn't think anything was good about it. I sat on the wedding bed, irritably pulling off the red veil from my head, rolling it up in my hands and throwing it out. Marcus happened to push the door open and come in, getting hit squarely by the veil I threw. He hurriedly caught it. Before he could see clearly what it was, his face bloomed with a brilliant smile. "This is the first time sister has given me something. I'm so happy." My anger and all the curses I had been holding back all night were extinguished by Marcus's one sentence. Looking at Marcus's shameless appearance, I even suspected that if I slapped him, he might even lick my palm. "Sister." Marcus sat down beside me, his face flushed, still smelling of alcohol. "It's late, are you sleepy?" Because he was sitting close, Marcus's hand touched the back of mine as if accidentally, then he unconsciously rubbed it gently. Then, as if remembering something, he quickly pulled his hand back, his ears turning red. Seeing I didn't stop him, Marcus sneakily looked at me, seeming to want to touch again. "If you want to talk, then talk." I glanced at him sideways. "If your claws randomly touch me again, I'll chop them off." That one sentence made Marcus immediately pull his hand back, sitting obediently beside me, pretending to be well-behaved. But somehow his eyes couldn't stay still. This kid really knew how to pretend. I had a bit of a headache and didn't know how to deal with him for the moment. We both fell silent and the room suddenly became quiet, with only the sound of the lamp wick crackling. Our breathing was scattered, and I couldn't help but sigh. I clearly remembered that in the original story, the person marrying Marcus was the female lead Lily. How did it become me? Where exactly did things go wrong? Could I have remembered incorrectly? Impossible. I bit my finger, but before I could think it through, Marcus had already pulled my finger down. He silently placed his own finger on my lips. I turned to look at him and met his innocent expression and the words, "Don't bite yourself, you'll get hurt. Bite me instead." I silently pushed his hand away and lay down on the bed to sleep. Marcus's eyes lit up, wanting to come closer, but then he heard me continue, "You sleep on the floor." He wanted to say something more, but when he met my cold gaze, he could only awkwardly squat beside the bed. I ignored him. Things had come to this point. The Emperor had personally granted the marriage, it couldn't be changed. Thinking too much was useless. I covered myself with the blanket and slept. I had thought it would be hard to sleep in a new place, but unexpectedly, I fell sound asleep shortly after closing my eyes. In the middle of the night, it felt like someone had stuffed a large heater behind my back, unbearably hot, making me very uncomfortable. In my dream, I struggled violently, but was still held tightly by that scorching heater, unable to move. When I woke up the next morning still groggy, I asked Marcus, "Did you stuff a heater next to me last night?" Marcus, sitting on the floor, shook his head obediently and answered, "No, sister. You were dreaming." I looked at him suspiciously, thought about it, then didn't mention it again. The Grand Princess didn't like me, she made this very clear. When Marcus wanted to take me to serve tea to her, I was stopped outside by Nanny Margaret, the Grand Princess's close attendant, with a smile. The reason she gave was truly ridiculous. "The Grand Princess is unwell, afraid of catching illness. Please wait in the corridor, young madam." At the same time, bursts of women's laughter came from the Grand Princess's courtyard, each sound louder than the last. Nanny Margaret smiled coldly and glanced at me, as if wanting to see how angry I would be. Unfortunately, I didn't show any displeasure as she expected. Instead, I appeared completely unconcerned. Since the Grand Princess is unwell today, let's try another day. Let's not disturb her rest. There were guests in the Grand Princess's courtyard. She could receive guests, she could see Marcus, but she didn't want to see me. This attitude was already very clear. I wasn't a fool. I wouldn't be stupid enough to press my hot face against someone's cold behind when they didn't want to see me. Coincidentally, I hadn't slept well last night and got up early today. I was still sleepy now, perfect timing to go back and catch up on sleep. I turned to leave. Nanny Margaret was startled by my unexpected action. She instinctively glanced at Marcus's expression beside me. After meeting Marcus's gloomy gaze, her body suddenly stiffened. Only then did Nanny Margaret remember that I was the woman Marcus had defied the Grand Princess's orders to marry, by making things difficult for me here and deliberately not letting me in to humiliate me. She wasn't humiliating me, but Marcus. Cold sweat broke out on Nanny Margaret's forehead as she tried to speak. "Young madam, please wait." I pretended not to hear and walked even faster. Nanny Margaret anxiously hurried to block me. "Young madam, it was this old servant's confusion. I'll go report immediately." Now she didn't mention anything about the Grand Princess being unwell. She desperately begged to take me inside. I looked down at her with a calm expression. Nanny Margaret forced a flattering smile. "Nanny." I laughed coldly, spinning the bracelet on my wrist. "You've been serving beside the Grand Princess for many years. At your age, you know better than I what to say and what to do. I won't hesitate to tell you. I was forced to marry into the Montgomery family. If you want to use inner household tactics to oppress me, with my temperament, if I don't make a huge scene, I won't let it go. I'm not a soft persimmon. If the Grand Princess wants to make things difficult for me, I don't mind making things big. After all, I have nothing to fear. Reputation or filial piety, I don't care about either. Whoever dares to provoke me and make me uncomfortable, I'll give them a slap to wake them up." Nanny Margaret shamefully took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from her forehead, almost kneeling before me. Only now did she understand why, when she was making things difficult for me, Marcus not only didn't defend me, but calmly stood watching. Obviously, he had long known that with my abilities, 10 Nanny Margarets wouldn't be my match. Just then, Lily came out supporting the Grand Princess from the courtyard. The Grand Princess coldly mocked. "What a sharp tongue. Is this how your parents taught you to speak to elders?" "Grandmother." Marcus blocked in front of me, calmly saying, "She's not wrong." He didn't explain much. One sentence of "she's not wrong" had already determined the outcome of this farce. After speaking, Marcus took my hand and secretly glanced at me, as if waiting for my praise. I raised an eyebrow and squeezed his hand back, making the corners of his eyes gleam with amusement. "I see you've been bewitched by this vixen," the Grand Princess said, trembling with anger at our small actions, almost raising her cane to strike Marcus. She was quickly stopped by Lily. "Grandmother, please calm down." Lily worriedly patted her chest, then looked up and said to me, "Sister, stop making trouble. Quickly kneel down and kowtow to apologize to grandmother." One confusing sentence made everyone's eyes turn to me. I pointed at myself, glaring. "You're telling me to kneel?" Lily pursed her lips and said, "If not for sister, why would grandmother argue with brother Marcus?" I blinked, about to open my mouth to scold, when Marcus had already shielded me, saying, "What are you to dare speak loudly in my mansion? Someone, throw her out." At Marcus's command, guards immediately came to forcibly remove Lily. Lily stepped back 2 paces, her face deathly pale, tears welling up but desperately held back. Her body swayed, but she still stubbornly refused to submit. The image of a weak white lotus became even clearer. I clicked my tongue softly. "I'll see who dares," the Grand Princess shouted loudly, glaring at me then at Marcus. "You owe Lily so much. I've already accepted her as my granddaughter. From now on, she is your sworn sister." Marcus frowned, wanting to say something, but the Grand Princess didn't give him the chance. "I have something to ask you." "Come in." The Grand Princess turned and entered the house. Marcus responded, then turned to approach me, intimately adjusting my clothes while saying softly, "Sister, stay here. Do whatever you want, just like before you married. You don't need to be too considerate or save face for anyone." I will always be your support. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for Lily standing beside us to hear clearly. The meaning was very clear: no matter what happened, he would always stand by my side. I raised an eyebrow and glanced to the side, seeing Lily's face grow even paler. How pitiful. Even after Marcus went into the room, Lily's complexion still hadn't recovered. I took a deep breath, not wanting to talk to Lily anymore. I prepared to find a warm place to rest. After taking 2 steps, Lily's trembling voice suddenly came from behind. "Sister, you must be very proud, aren't you?" I tilted my head and looked straight into Lily's burning, hateful eyes. "Stealing my husband and then—" "Stop." I coldly cut off her words. "Isn't it right? Sister, you could have married him originally. It was you who kept pretending to be magnanimous, kept refusing and pushing him away. Can you blame this on me too?" To be honest, at that time, as long as she had nodded, she would be the wife and I would be the concubine. How did this story change so much in just one day in Lily's mouth? "You." Lily froze, took a deep breath, then suddenly changed the subject, saying coldly, "I am his lifesaver. You stole my credit, you can't deny this, can you?" "I already told him. He doesn't believe me." Sharp as poison, Lily's gaze was like it was laced with venom. She stared at me intently as if wanting to tear me to pieces. "I don't care what you say behind my back or how you slander me. In front of the young Marquis, let me tell you, what's mine will always be mine." I touched my chin, agreeing wholeheartedly. "That's right, you'd better hurry up. Otherwise in 2 days when I have a child, you won't be able to take him back." She angrily took 2 steps toward me, furiously saying, "Since childhood, I've always given in to you. Whatever you wanted with just one word, I would hand over my things with both hands. You've taken everything I treasured. I never resented you. I always thought that as long as I gave in, as long as I avoided your sharp edges, one day you'd get tired of taking my things. But I was wrong, completely wrong. A vicious woman like you will never know repentance. Instead, you push further, stealing my marriage match, stealing my husband in front of everyone." At this point, Lily's tears couldn't be held back anymore, flowing freely. Her voice trembled, but she continued, "I won't endure anymore. You and I are absolutely irreconcilable." With that, Lily used her hand to wipe away her tears as if wiping away all weakness from her body. Nanny Margaret, standing nearby, had long been looking at Lily with a pained expression. I smiled ambiguously, waiting for her to finish her performance before speaking. "You say I'm evil as the heavens, but no matter how wicked I am, I never killed your mother, did I?" Lily's expression froze. "When I transmigrated into this body, I was already 7 years old. That year my mother was seriously ill." Lily's mother took this opportunity to escape her status as an outside room that couldn't see the light of day and was elevated to be that scumbag father's concubine. At that time, Lily was timidly brought before me. She softly called me sister. Victoria Chen was showing disgust, raising her hand to slap her when I took over this body. Right when Lily was trembling, not daring to move, I casually brushed a dry leaf from her hair. Perhaps too frightened, Lily fell to the ground, her wrist cut by stones and bleeding, then burst into tears. Perhaps the vicious supporting female and the strong female lead really were fundamentally different. That night, I was punished by that scumbag father for bullying my sister. Made to kneel in the ancestral hall. I naturally refused to submit and knocked over the altar full of spirit tablets in the ancestral hall. So I was stripped and pressed onto a chair to be caned. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 5 strikes, 7 strikes. I was beaten nearly to death. Lily was held in that scumbag father's arms, watching me get beaten. If my mother hadn't struggled with her weak body to grab a sword and kill the servant executing the punishment, I probably would have really died that day. I remember that night was very chaotic. Screams and shouts mixed with the smell of blood made me dizzy. The next day when I woke up, I had absorbed Victoria Chen's memories and also lost my mother. Lily came to visit me. I raised my hand without hesitation and slapped her. "I kindly came to comfort you, and you hit me," Lily cried pitifully. "You're like a dog biting Lu Dongbin, not knowing good from bad." She cried while running out, happening to bump into that scumbag father. He angrily rushed over intending to strangle me. I laughed coldly. "You'd better strangle me to death immediately. I've already had someone deliver a letter. When my maternal uncle's people arrived to see how you talk to my uncle." His hand froze on my neck, not daring to move. From then on, I haven't lived peacefully. And I won't let others live peacefully either. Since childhood, I never understood what forbearance meant. I only knew it was better to be broken jade than intact tiles. Perhaps my gaze was too fierce, or perhaps the pressure from my maternal family was too great. In any case, after that, the scumbag father left with a wave of his sleeve and ignored me. No matter how I bullied Lily or how she complained, the scumbag father acted as if he hadn't heard. But honestly, I never really bullied Lily at all. I just personally cut off the 3 bright starting points of her life. Lily's first shining moment was when she attended the capital's young ladies' flower viewing banquet in my place. Relying on a 7-character quatrain poem, she became famous as a talented woman and even won over the fierce and unruly third princess, becoming close friends with her. From then on, she gained protective power and climbed to life's peak. Though she usually said I wasn't good at socializing and only wanted to focus on academics, in reality she never missed any flower viewing excursions or tea gatherings. According to the original plot, she would become a capital's talented woman. How could I let her have her way? When she was carefully preparing to recite poetry, I had already arranged for someone to push her into the pond. I just didn't expect her to be so quick-handed. Before falling into the water, she frantically grabbed the third princess and pulled her down too. After that, Lily was confined in the mansion, and her relationship with the third princess soared. The scene of intimate sisters in the original story was gone. Without the third princess's help, I guaranteed Lily wouldn't accomplish anything for the next 3 years. Her second shining moment was saving the male lead Marcus Montgomery. I had originally planned to confine Lily, not giving her the chance to go out and save Marcus. But if I let her be locked up at home until marriage age to marry some merchant and live out her remaining days in obscurity, I would be bored to death. So I deliberately helped her bribe the gatekeeper nanny, allowing her to go out to see the Lantern Festival lights on the 15th night of the first lunar month, watching with my own eyes as she saved a dying man in the dilapidated Seven Dragons temple. To be honest, when I saw the blood-covered, miserable male lead Marcus Montgomery, my first reaction was, is this thing human? Then I used my folding fan to brush aside his messy hair. Seeing his face, I felt perhaps only looks like this were worthy of the author's description of face like jade. At that time, I squatted down to examine him from head to toe, feeling that matching such looks with the White Lotus female lead was really too frustrating for him. I wanted to make a move, my body slightly leaning forward, when Marcus suddenly opened his eyes and fiercely grabbed my fan. I was startled and instinctively stood straight up. Just then, he closed his eyes again. Had this guy sensed danger? I patted my chest nervously, not daring to make any more moves, and quickly called Sophie, who was guarding at the door, to leave. I dropped my fan, the female lead revealed the jade pendant. Everything seemed to still be going according to plan, yet also seemed to be deviating from track. Until Marcus mistook me for someone else and forced me to marry him. Thus, the 3 important plot points in Lily's early life were all ruined by me. I touched my chin, putting myself in Lily's position to think I really was quite wicked. Your mother was already seriously ill. The doctor said she wouldn't survive that winter. Lily clenched her fists tightly, gritting her teeth and saying, she died because she deserved to die. As soon as she finished speaking, my slap landed. 2 crisp slapping sounds, 2 fair slaps, 1 left, 1 right. You dare hit me. Lily was stunned, red-faced with anger. Regardless of everything, she lunged at me, wanting to grab me. Then her wrist was tightly grabbed by Marcus and roughly thrown aside. Who allowed you to touch her? Marcus stared at Lily, his expression cold and terrifying. I didn't. She hit me first. Lily's tears immediately flowed. Everyone here can testify for me. Lily's words suddenly stopped because she saw Marcus gently blowing on my palm and instructing, next time have the servants do it. Don't let your hand hurt. Though doing it yourself is indeed more satisfying. I glanced at Lily and said meaningfully, that's the case. Next time I'll find you a pair of soft deerskin gloves so your hands won't hurt when hitting. Hearing this, Lily's face turned blue and white. Finally she had to be supported by a maid to leave. Lily returned to the mansion crying, and I heard she smashed quite a few things, making a huge fuss. But because she had climbed up to the Grand Princess, and had previously shown her face before the Emperor and happened to enter the palace to serve as a female attendant beside His Majesty for a few days, she had been very arrogant lately. Sophie said indignantly. I overheard that she has befriended several princes and princesses, attending banquets with them daily, coming home later and later. A few days ago I even saw her from afar in the mansion with her eyes raised to the sky. I raised an eyebrow, not expecting Lily to have such fortune. But thinking about it, she was the female lead after all. Even though I had obstructed her time and again, her luck was still much better than mine. I was eating melon seeds and gossiping with Sophie when Marcus sat on the soft bed beside us, looking like he wanted to speak but holding back. I turned to see that expression of his, spat out the melon seed shells, and asked mockingly, "What's wrong? Does our gossiping about others bother you?" I'm exactly the type of woman who likes to talk behind people's backs. If you don't like hearing it, go read somewhere else. If you don't like it, get lost. Don't stay here bothering me and Sophie while we gossip about Lily. Since marrying in, I hadn't hidden myself at all, living exactly as my personality dictated. I had thought Marcus didn't know my true face, that he was simply attracted by my beauty. Unexpectedly, these past few days while Sophie and I made noise, Marcus showed no sign of disgust. He just sat beside us with a knowing smile, watching, seeming to find it amusing. Just like now, Marcus shook his head, put down his book and plopped down beside me, saying somewhat intimately, "I don't dislike it. I'm just a bit jealous." Huh. I looked at him in surprise, not understanding what nonsense he was saying. "I'm a bit jealous of her, because you always mention her." Marcus licked his lips and said, "I want to hear you mention my name more." I was stunned. Sophie cleverly looked back and forth between Marcus and me, then quietly retreated and thoughtfully closed the door for us. I pretended to think, then let out an "oh," propping my chin and staring at Marcus. At first he remained calm, but unable to withstand my examining gaze. That straightforward, passionate look made Marcus's ears turn slightly red. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Young Marquise, you're more innocent than I thought." Marcus lowered his eyes, the corners of his mouth curving in a smile as he said softly, "But I want to hear you call me husband." I pretended not to hear, grabbed a handful of melon seeds for him, then asked, "What did you talk about with the Grand Princess a few days ago? After talking, why did the Grand Princess take her entourage up to Mount Tai to worship Buddha and still hasn't shown any intention of coming down?" "If you call me husband once, I'll tell you," Marcus smiled, rubbing the back of my hand. I slapped his hand. Marcus not only wasn't angry but took the opportunity to hold my hand. This kid was really thick-skinned. Since getting married, he had been finding every way to hold my hand and want to embrace me. When I refused, he wasn't upset at all. He always found other ways to be intimate with me. Even when I went out to attend noon flower viewing banquets, he followed me like a shadow. So when he and I appeared together at the flower viewing banquet, before leaving, he took off his cloak and laid it on the stone bench for me. I clearly heard several gasps from the crowd, and someone said loudly, "Sister Lily, how did you get such good fortune?" I turned to see Lily's gloomy expression, and my mood immediately improved. I even gave her a brilliant smile. Lily's expression became even uglier. I calmly returned to the banquet. Not long after, Lily also returned to her seat. Except for slightly red eyes, nothing seemed unusual. She even nodded at me gently when she caught my eye. It was hard to imagine this was the same person who had just been plotting with others to sell me to a brothel after the bank ended. My fingertips tapped lightly on the table as I pondered. Then Sophie brought me a letter. I opened it to see Marcus had written one line. "Whatever you want to do, just command me." After reading it, I suddenly felt someone watching me. Looking up, I saw Marcus standing under a distant tree, looking this way. For some reason, after seeing him, I felt much more at ease. This feeling of having someone supporting me wasn't bad at all. I maintained this good mood until the banquet ended. A young page borrowed Marcus's name to tell me to get in the carriage at the back door first to go home. The trap was already set. If I didn't jump in, it would be a waste. Sophie and I got in the carriage as the page instructed. The carriage moved slowly. Sophie worriedly gripped the small knife in her hand. "Miss, don't be afraid. If any ignorant fool comes here, Sophie will be the first to finish him off." I looked at Sophie's serious expression and couldn't help but laugh, patting her shoulder. "Good, I'll leave my life in your hands." Sophie nodded solemnly, her nerves taut, alert to every movement outside. After 2 incense sticks worth of time, the carriage finally stopped. I lifted the curtain and looked at the desolate field outside, raising an eyebrow. So they had taken me out of the city. Just as I touched the poison powder hidden in my sleeve, the carriage curtain was roughly pulled open. The light outside wasn't very bright, but I still had to squint. When I opened my eyes, I saw Lily standing among a group of black-clothed people, coldly looking at me. "Six, sister," I said with a smile. "I've kept sister waiting." Lily had brought 8 people, all strong young men surrounding the carriage. With so many people, I'm afraid the poison powder wouldn't be enough. This was a bit troublesome. Lily laughed coldly, ignoring me and turning to the 2 black-clothed men beside her. "Bring her down." I lowered my eyes, not resisting at all, and was immediately escorted before Lily. Right after, my face was slapped by Lily, turning to one side. I tasted blood in my mouth. Sophie cried out in alarm, wanting to rush forward to save me but was held back by a black-clothed man. "When you humiliated me, did you ever think you would have this day?" Lily grabbed my chin, smiling coldly at me. Just as I was about to speak, another slap landed with a crisp sound. This slap left a mark on my face, making me dizzy, my vision blurring. I heard Lily say meaningfully, "Hitting someone with your own hands really doesn't feel bad." "Sister, you were so right. But I think if you could kill your enemy with your own hands, that feeling would surely be even more satisfying." Lily pressed the hairpin in her hand against my neck, smiling brilliantly. "Don't you think so? I originally planned to send you to a dark brothel, let you be ridden by thousands of men, then throw your worm-eaten naked body by the roadside to suffer all insults and infamy for eternity." "Great idea." I raised an eyebrow and calmly asked, "So why did you change your mind?" Lily laughed. Perhaps seeing me now with hands tied tightly, completely her prisoner, she no longer pretended to be noble. "Then I thought about it. That would really be too merciful for you." A vicious gleam flashed in Lily's eyes as she enunciated each word. "I want you to die as miserably and desperately as possible, without giving you any way to live." Before I could ask more, Lily directly ordered, "Tee them up." The next second, Sophie and I were roughly pushed into the carriage, our hands and feet bound tightly, unable to move. Lily held a torch and softly hummed as she got in the carriage. She lit the carriage curtain, then stared at my hair. "Sister, your hair is quite well maintained." Lily approached with a smile. "I just wonder what it will smell like when burned." She and the torch were both very close to me. My expression remained unchanged. When Lily was just an inch away from me, I used the small knife Sophie had hidden in my sleeve to cut the ropes and lunged at Lily. "Help! Save me! Save me!" Lily hadn't expected this turn of events. Her face changed dramatically as she wanted to retreat for reinforcements, but it was too late. My dagger was already at her throat. At the same time, the horses were frightened by the fire and screams, running forward frantically. Everything happened too quickly. In the blink of an eye, the carriage shot off like flying, leaving the black-clothed men beside it unable to react in time. By the time they reacted, that crazed horse had already disappeared without a trace. Marcus arrived just in time to see this scene, his heart pounding. Not daring to delay, he immediately spurred his horse to chase after them. In the carriage, Lily and I struggled with each other. I seized the right moment to throw the poison powder from my sleeve into her face. Her body immediately went limp. Within 3 breaths, I had her pinned down. "My good sister, aren't you happy to die together with me?" I laughed loudly. The short knife grazed Lily's face, accidentally cutting her flesh. Fresh blood oozed out, making her scream in terror. "You're crazy, crazy. Let me go quickly." Fire spread across the carriage. Lily was restrained by me and affected by the drug, basically unable to move. At this rate, before being burned to death, she would be stabbed to death by me. "What are you afraid of? Weren't you very bold just now, shouting about wanting to kill me? Weren't you very proud?" My eyes stung from the smoke as I unconsciously looked at her slender neck. "If you kill me, Father won't let you go," Lily said, recognizing my gaze. Her whole body trembled. I licked my lips, not taking her threat seriously. But just then, I heard Sophie coughing violently from the smoke. "Miss." Sophie grabbed my hand, tears streaming from the smoke. "The fire is too big. We need to jump quickly." As she spoke, the carriage window burned by the fire fell down. I came to my senses and looked at Sophie. The small knife in her hand had been put away. Just then, Lily saw her opportunity and jumped out of the carriage. Before Sophie and I could react, she had escaped me. She fell down joyfully, But immediately after, a terrible scream came from under the wheels, followed by the horses' loud neighing. The crazed horses trampled wildly. Sophie was almost thrown out, but I pulled her back. Sophie held tightly to me, and only had time to turn and give one instruction. Then I turned and left the carriage, grabbing the rope flying in mid-air, my whole body suspended outside the carriage. The fire grew rapidly. The carriage turned into a ball of scorching flames. The horses couldn't stop. To survive, we could only jump. But the carriage was moving too fast, jumping would be extremely dangerous. I gritted my teeth, my mind quickly calculating, then looked at the frame in front of the carriage. Taking a gamble. I didn't hesitate anymore and kicked hard at one side of the frame. One side fell down, and the carriage box tilted heavily to one side. I kicked hard at the remaining frame. The horses broke free from their restraints and galloped forward. The entire carriage shook violently, carried forward only by the last bit of inertia. Sophie hugged me tightly. I pulled her close. Sophie's eyes went round, and before she could react, I had pulled her to jump from the disintegrating carriage. Wind whistled past our ears as I pulled Sophie off the carriage. We fell heavily to the ground, rolling several times until stopped by bushes. Amid the fire and thick smoke, I opened my eyes to check Sophie's condition. Though her face was pale with fear, she seemed fine. I breathed a sigh of relief and spread my arms, laughing loudly. Sophie was stunned for a moment, looking at me, then at the carriage that had burned to ashes in the distance, and burst out laughing too. When Marcus arrived in a panic, he found Sophie and me with faces blackened by smoke, lying on the grass laughing heartily like two madwomen. Sophie and I, apart from some scratches, were fine. On the contrary, Lily, in her haste to jump from the carriage, and weakened by my poison making her whole body limp, fell directly in front of the carriage. Not only did she land face first, but she was also trampled several times by the horses, basically unable to escape. Then she was run over by the carriage wheels. When found, Lily was barely breathing, her face covered in blood, breathing weakly. My scumbag father rarely showed mercy and sent people to the Montgomery mansion to beg for 1,000-year-old ginseng to save her life. At that time, I was bathing. Marcus sat beside the tub helping me comb my long hair. When the servant came to report, I casually brushed aside the flower petals in the bath and said indifferently, "I won't lend it. The perpetrator comes begging medicine from the victim. What are they thinking? If I hadn't been quick-witted today, the one dead would be me. If I lend it to her, I'm afraid tomorrow I'll become a Buddha." As soon as I finished speaking, Marcus added, "Next time if people from the Chen mansion dare come here." The servant took the order and withdrew. I slowly opened my eyes and looked at Marcus. Our eyes met. I smiled mockingly. "Young Marquise, you're aiding evil here. That young lady once saved your life when you were between life and death. How can you bear not to lend her 1,000-year-old ginseng?" My fingertips glided across Marcus's chest. My hand was immediately caught by him, and a gentle kiss was placed on the back of my hand. Repaying kindness with enmity and daring to harm my wife. A cold gate flashed in Marcus's eyes. That I didn't personally draw my sword to kill her is already considering she once saved my life. I burst out laughing, breaking the tense atmosphere from before. "Young Marquise, your words make me feel like I'm dodgy, bringing disaster to the country and harming the people." I teased with a playful glint in my eyes. Marcus blushed and leaned close, saying, "If you are dodgy, I'm willing to be your King Joe. Completely infatuated with only you, unconditionally following all your commands." I blinked, listening to Marcus continue, "As long as you say you love me." I lifted his chin, looking deeply into his eyes, saying nothing more. Lily's life was indeed tough. Somehow she managed to invite an imperial physician to save her life. But her face was ruined and her leg was broken. She screamed all day in her chamber, refusing to come out, spending her days in her room cursing me frantically, sticking needles into a doll of me. She no longer had any of her former arrogance, only dejection and madness. I heard the third prince once came to visit, wanting to comfort her, but fled in fear upon seeing her. Only Lily was left hugging her face and screaming in pain. At that time, because of one sentence from me, "The capital is truly boring." Marcus packed our belongings and traveled everywhere with me. For nearly 5 years, we traveled while helping the poor, also gaining some reputation. Sometimes remembering past events, I would giggle and tell him, "Back then, I really didn't want to marry you." But Marcus would seriously say, The person I wanted to marry was always you, always you. Not because of the jade pendant, but because you are you. His words were so pleasant to hear. I didn't care if they were true or false, just contentedly down to reward him with a kiss. Marcus held the back of my neck, kissing deeper and deeper. Endless. Sometimes in life, what we desperately try to grasp slips away, while what comes naturally truly belongs to us. Lily stubbornly fought for everything but lost it all, while Victoria, though wicked, was genuinely loved by Marcus. The story reminds us that true love cannot be forced or faked, and being authentic to ourselves, even if imperfect, sometimes attracts the right people into our lives. Those who scheme and pretend often lose everything, while those who are unapologetically themselves may find unexpected happiness and genuine connections.